We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty.
Relief and celebration after an emotionally charged trial ends in a guilty verdict for the ex-police officer charged in the death of George Floyd.
BC's budget, the first during the pandemic, is coming with a big bottom line, the province's biggest deficit ever. But there's also billions in backup, just in case of more pandemic surprises.
This is Boundary Road. A lot of people from Vancouver and Burnaby cross over it every day, but it's also the separation between two different health regions which we're now being told to avoid traveling between. Just ahead, the challenges with the provincial government's upcoming travel restrictions.
But it still sounds like a logistical nightmare to me.
Pure emotion in the streets of Minneapolis late this afternoon, where large crowds gathered awaiting a decision in the case of the former police officer charged in the death of George Floyd. The 3 guilty verdicts were relayed via a megaphone, calming the nerves of an extremely anxious city. The jury came to a unanimous decision after roughly 10 hours of deliberation spread over 2 days. Millions of people were watching around the world as the verdict against Derek Chauvin was read out inside the courtroom.
Verdict count 1, court file number 27 CR 20-12646. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:44 p.m. Signed, juror foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 2. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 2, third-degree murder, perpetrating an eminently dangerous act, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Signed by jury foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 3. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Jury foreperson 019.
Floyd's death touched off demonstrations and protests around the world and quickly became the focal point of a global conversation about alleged police brutality and the Black Lives Matter movement. The 46-year-old died after Chauvin knelt on his neck for more than 9 minutes during an arrest in May of last year. The jury had several options, including handing down individual verdicts on each of those 3 charges. The most serious charge of second-degree murder carries a prison sentence of 40 years. A sentencing hearing will be held at a later date. The verdict came as the entire state of Minnesota was on edge. Members of the National Guard had been called in to patrol the streets. Several stores were also boarded up and concrete barriers were set up around the courthouse as a precaution. Tensions were ratcheted even higher earlier this month when a 20-year-old black man, Dante Wright, died after being shot by a police officer in nearby Brooklyn Center.
You know, I always remember the moment when George Floyd called for his mother. That was the most poignant thing. And when I heard the verdict, I reflected on that moment and realized that in some strange way, that call to his mother somehow answered.
Reaction from Minneapolis, online and here in Canada, as Derek Chauvin is found guilty on all charges in the death of George Floyd. Dr. June Francis is an associate professor with Simon Fraser University, and she also does work with the Hogan's Alley Society in Vancouver, a group she describes as advocating for the well-being of Black Canadians. She says the outcome at the trial is one she expected.
This is the only possible outcome. We all saw what we saw. We all knew what was the right thing. We all saw, the world saw it. And if we did not get justice today, I think I shudder to think what would have happened.
Now, this is a trial in another country, another court system. Do you get a sense that Black Canadians here in Vancouver and elsewhere in Canada were also watching the developments and the outcome of this closely?
The logic of that, what happened to George Floyd, is a logic that we all feel across this country. Every Canadian that I know that was Black, every Black Canadian and their family stopped everything.
Can you, I guess, theorize what impact will this verdict have on our expectations going forward?
I think for the first time we saw that blue line break, okay? So the first time we saw the police actually, for the first time, acknowledging that one of theirs had erred.
Can you foresee what kind of conversations are going to come from the outcome of this trial in the future?
So in this country, I know that there's been a lot of push. There's been review of the Police Act. My problem is that I don't think that the transformation we need is occurring. So I'm really hoping that this moment that we can reinvigorate the conversation.
In Vancouver, David Zura, City News.
I kind of had a front row view of the fire the whole night, so I found it really hard to sleep.
Fire crews are still on scene after a massive fire tore through an under-construction condo complex in Langley Monday night. Just ahead, the damage it's caused and an update on the investigation.
In the years since the BC government's last budget, the world's turned upside down, and now BC's bottom line also being turned upside down. The NDP's first budget as majority government, coming with a $9.7 billion deficit that will take up to 9 years to pay off.
We prioritize the health and safety of our people and our economy, while recognizing the importance of longer-term fiscal sustainability. In the absence of a balanced budget framework, we implemented fiscal guardrails.
Those guardrails include more than $3 billion in contingencies. This as the government mostly builds on programs already in place.
We've moved quickly on, dozens of programs at this point. I'm actually feel like I'm losing count of those programs, whether it was the rent assistance that we delivered, last year, the recovery benefit that we delivered this year and continuing to deliver.
Health staying in the spotlight. $900 million for testing, tracing, and vaccinating, $500 million for mental health, and nearly $600 million to train healthcare workers. With a pandemic that keeps throwing up new challenges, there's also $3.3 billion in contingency for those just-in-case scenarios.
A perfect example is the fact that the circuit breaker component that we're dealing with right now, suddenly, it changed and it got extended for 5 more weeks. And so that has implications for the business community.
The business of real estate bustling, property and transfer taxes bringing in $4 billion last year. Not bustling the tourism sector, taking another big hit with impending travel restrictions.
Some have been absent of revenues for anywhere from 12 to 16 months as seasonal businesses. Many have second mortgaged their homes, they've cashed out their RSPs, they've maximized their credit cards, they are really desperate to keep their businesses afloat. So they need money now in the form of grants or low interest, no interest loans.
And another $120 million this budget to bolster what the sector's had so far. Judah's saying the money's coming steadily, but what the industry needs is what all of us want, restrictions to end. Until then, for them and many other businesses, the pressure's on this BC budget and this government to get them to the other side.
We're continuing to identify how to best meet the needs of those particular businesses, and there'll be more to say in the days ahead around that.
For City News in Victoria, I'm News 1130's Lisa Yuzda.
My intention has been, as I've said many times, to get vaccinated as quickly as my turn comes up.
The 49-year-old Prime Minister now gearing up to get his AstraZeneca vaccine as more provinces lower the minimum age for the shot. But now an unexpected delay to new guidance from NACI on the jab.
There are 849 new cases of COVID-19 across the province tonight. More than half of those cases are in the Fraser Health region, and one more person has died in the last day. 456 people are currently in hospital. 148 are in intensive care. Anyone 35 and older is now eligible to register for their vaccine on the government's website, and anyone 40 and older can get the AstraZeneca shot at their local pharmacy.
Never said we couldn't do it. We said that it would be logistically challenging.
But it still sounds like a logistical nightmare to me.
The logistical challenge or nightmare, referring to Monday's announcement by the BC government of new travel restrictions in a bid to slow the spread of COVID-19. The restrictions aim to stop people moving between provincial health regions, and the Premier even suggesting we'd see roadside stops as a means of monitoring compliance. But Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth cleared that up on Tuesday morning, saying in a statement the province is examining the use of periodic roadblocks only, like our usual winter holiday counterattack anti-drinking and driving campaign set up at places like BC Ferries or on Highway 1 leaving the Lower Mainland to discourage recreational travel. There will be no individual stops, and they're not interested in disrupting commuters. Putting up roadblocks at BC Ferries or major highways leaving the Lower Mainland is one thing, but look here at Boundary Road. It's a busy border between Vancouver and Burnaby, and also is the separation between two different health authorities. One political analyst says enforcement could become problematic in populated areas like these.
You can take New Westminster, Burnaby, Surrey. They are all in the Fraser Health region, and Vancouver's in Coastal Health. We're talking about 3 different police forces in these jurisdictions, and 4 if we include transit police, with people taking the SkyTrain across the border between these 2 health authorities. It's political posturing. They've asked nicely, now they're getting out the bullhorn and yelling at us.
The borders between health regions are invisible. Despite its closeness to Vancouver, did you know that Burnaby is really in the Fraser Health region? Yes, the same health authority as Chilliwack.
People don't necessarily organize their lives by health authority.
Julianne Piper with the SFU Pandemics and Borders Project welcomes the upcoming travel measures, but sees the problems with what is currently put forward by the province.
It probably wouldn't be the best approach if the provincial government decided to enforce this type of measure at, say, the boundary between Vancouver and Burnaby. And I think we've seen indication from Minister Farnworth and from Premier Horgan that's not really the intention behind these measures. But it is, to your point, it gives cause for reflection on whether health authorities are the appropriate or the best way to delineate these sort of stay local measures.
Minister Farnworth is expected to provide more details this Friday on how people can prove their travel is essential and what penalties rule breakers will face. In Vancouver, Keir Junos, City News.
No one has been arrested following last night's deadly shooting at a basketball court in Coquitlam. Police were called to Town Centre Park on Pine Tree Way just after 6:30. A 20-year-old man was shot multiple times on the court. Emergency crews tried to save him, but he died at the scene. It's not clear why he was targeted, but police say there's evidence he's had conflicts with other people. It was a beautiful sunny evening and the park was full of people last night, so investigators are hoping more people come forward.
There were a lot of witnesses, and we need those people to come forward. We believe there were, about maybe 40 to 50 people in that area. And when the shots rang out, a lot of them scattered, understandably, from the shock of having witnessed a shooting take place. A lot of those people we haven't spoken to yet. And this is a message to them. We need to speak with you.
Call police if you have any information.
Unlike just a regular fire, the glowing embers were quite spectacular in a bad way.
A massive fire that swept through an under-construction condo complex in Langley Monday night continued to burn Tuesday, keeping dozens of people out of their neighboring homes.
To know that this can happen so close to where you live, it's unbelievable.
The fire broke out Monday night at an unoccupied multi-story complex at 208th Street and 80th Avenue. Within a matter of minutes, massive flames, glowing embers, and a huge plume of smoke filled the night sky. Deputy Fire Chief Bruce Ferguson said there has been some damage to nearby occupied suites.
There is some some damage to some of the occupied suites, and we've had some reports of fire embers landing on rooftops and driveways and whatnot of the neighboring areas. Though that damage doesn't appear to be significant, but there are a few suites and buildings that are occupied that have some fire damage to them. I think most of them they will be able to reoccupy. There may be one or two that are not occupiable. The unoccupied building that was under construction is a pile of rubble in a hole in the ground.
It was so hot that basically anything that was plastic melted. So the siding, thankfully the bottom is brick, so it didn't really get much damage. Our top window has a bit of a crack in it just from the heat. And then the windows are plastic, so they're a bit warped.
You can see here all that's left of the unoccupied complex is what's believed to be elevator shafts, standing alone in a pile of rubble.
I kind of had a front row view of the fire the whole night, so I found it really hard to sleep.
Dozens of people are here Tuesday watching firefighters put out the remaining hotspots. It's a busy residential neighborhood, and Monday night's blaze could be seen from across the region.
I noticed a glow against one of those buildings, and I thought, well, that's really unusual. And then I saw the flames shooting up. So I told my husband that there's a fire over there, and I phoned it in, but they already knew about it. They said the trucks were on the way.
Those living in the neighborhood say it's a close-knit community that comes together in difficult times.
We've had some trials and tribulations over the years, and everybody comes together, and we will again this time as well.
Fire crews were expected to be on scene for most of the day. While there is a significant amount of damage, no injuries have been reported. The cause of the fire is still under investigation.
It's way too early to determine a cause and origin, even to determine if it's suspicious or not.
In Langley, Murata Fatour, City News.
Tragedy in Vancouver's Strathcona neighborhood this morning after a man was struck and killed by a truck. It happened just before 10 o'clock on East Cordova Street near Princess Avenue. Police say a 67-year-old man was stepping off the curb when he was hit by the vehicle. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Speed and alcohol are not believed to be factors in the accident. Anyone who saw what happened is asked to call Vancouver police.
An update was expected Tuesday on recommendations when it comes to AstraZeneca's coronavirus vaccine here in Canada. But a news conference from the National Advisory Committee on Immunization, or NACI, was abruptly cancelled just moments before it was scheduled to begin. Health Canada later explaining the NACI briefing was postponed to further validate its data analysis. Exactly what that entails isn't clear. But the committee says it expects to release finalized guidance on the shot later this week. The delay comes as many provinces like Ontario, Alberta, Manitoba, and BC have just moved ahead with lowering the age of eligibility to 40 for AstraZeneca's jab. In Quebec, the minimum age is going down to 45 starting Wednesday.
Provinces and territories are free to use AstraZeneca in any age population over 18 as per Health Canada's license for use in Canada.
That reminder from the federal health minister over the weekend. But there's been confusion after NACI issued guidance last month, reacting to concerns over the rare risk of blood clots associated with the shot, saying the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine should not be used in adults under 55 years of age. But that recommendation is non-binding, meaning provinces and territories can expand eligibility as they see fit.
The bottom line is all of the 4 approved vaccines in Canada are incredibly effective at protecting you from serious illness and death, and they're incredibly safe.
Appearing on Breakfast Television Tuesday, Dr. Howard Ovens with Sinai Health System shared a message echoed by health experts, saying the shot is safe and the risk of clots is extremely low.
There really isn't another example of something that has a risk of 1 in 100,000 that would change your behavior. The risk of a car accident, the risk of a plane crash, the risk of being hit by lightning on a golf course. These are not the kinds of things that change our behavior.
And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he'll be among those rolling up their sleeves soon.
With the news that AstraZeneca is now available for 40 and up in Ontario, my office and I are busy trying to book appointments, and we will be sure to invite everyone along to help encourage others to get vaccinated as quickly as possible.
Trudeau, who is 49, by the way, says he's looking forward to getting the shot. Conservative Party leader Aaron O'Toole, who's 48, saying Tuesday he's booked to get his AstraZeneca jab this weekend. Melissa Duggan, City News.
Former Premier Christie was in the hot seat today, providing testimony at the province's money laundering inquiry. Clark says reports of suspicious behavior at BC casinos were acted upon by her government, but she admits that wasn't a priority until 2015. Senior Commission Counsel Patrick McGowan had to ask Clark several times if she knew some government revenues were linked to organized crime.
Can you point to any step that you as Premier took to ensure that the issue of suspicious cash in casinos and money laundering more generally was being addressed by your government?
Well, I mean, and we talked a little bit about this before, which, making sure that the Croker report was fully implemented, revise the buy-in, cash out policies that we had, move to e-funding, change the policy so that staff don't assume that because somebody's losing, they're not laundering money. That long list of things, and then the creation of the joint task force. I mean, me and Minister DeYoung specifically spoke about that, and as I said, we got it done, and I think it's made a difference.
Christie Clark is among a number of former cabinet ministers who are on the witness list. Attorney General David Eby has been added to the witness list as well. Rogers says it's going to issue a bill credit after yesterday's massive network outage. The credit will automatically show up on next month's bill and will be the same amount as yesterday's wireless service fee. Rogers says it's working with Swedish telecom company Ericsson after a system upgrade created issues to the network. It's again apologizing for any inconvenience and will work hard to earn back your trust. Rogers is the parent company of this station. The longest-serving Green MP in Canada is officially running in the next federal election. Former Green leader Elizabeth May has been acclaimed as the party's candidate for Saanich Gulf Islands. That's the riding she has represented since 2011, when she made history as the first elected Green in Canada. She stepped down as the party's leader in 2019 after a federal election that saw 2 other Green MPs elected. That was the most in the party's history. But it's still far from the 12 needed for official party status. 3 stolen puppies have all been safely returned home. The American Bulldog pups were stolen on April 10th, during a break-and-enter at a home on 8th Avenue in South Surrey. Thanks to media reports and tips from the public, Surrey RCMP were able to locate all 3 pups, return them to their owners, and reunite them with their mother.